Graham, can you unmute PJ Dewars?
I can. Hey, PJ Dewars is unmuted.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Dewars
PJ.
is unmuted.
So you're here for
Hello,
Cooper
everybody.
Avenue as well,
That's
right,
correct.
PJ?
Yes.
So you're here. All right. Well, we hear you loud and clear.
That's correct.
So
Yes.
when Mr. Brady calls your name, we'll unmute you. Mr. Brady.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Mr. Brady. Next. Okay. Mary Ann Ribley.
Sounds good.
Okay, Mary Ann Ribley is unmuted.
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Ribley is
Ms. Ribley?
unmuted.
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Ribley is
Ms. Ribley?
unmuted.
It still says that she's muted. It still says that she's muted.
Did she join us by phone?
I'm on by phone.
Did she join us? There you are. Okay.
I'm on the Fullerton Condominium
There you are.
Association. I'm
Okay.
just part of the board, and I'm here basically to listen.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will mute myself.
Okay.
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 Okay, good.
So I will mute myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Graham, can you
Thank you.
unmute PDD?
Okay. Yes.
Graham, can you unmute PDD? Hi there. Oh,
Yes.
Graham, can you unmute? I can't hear. She's muted again.
Yes. Hello?
Hi. Nope, can't hear.
Can you hear me?
PDD?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
now I can hear
Hello?
you.
Hi, it's Pat Davis. I apologize for coming in as
Yes, we can hear you.
Now
PDD.
I can hear you.
Hello?
Okay. But you're here for the Fullerton Condo Association, right?
I am, yes.
Okay. All right. We can hear you, so if you're called to speak, we'll be able to access you. Okay?
All right, great. Great, thank you.
Who else do we have here?
I've moved to a different room in the house right next to where the Wi-Fi connection is, but I don't see my face, so maybe it's still low connectivity.
Yeah. You're joining by iPad, it looks like? Or,
So
okay, you may have to turn on the video. Yeah, it says that your connectivity is fine now, so.
Yeah, if you just turn on the little video
oh, I see where it says that.
icon.
Okay. Hold on. There we go.
There you are. Much better.
Okay. All right, so what time is it? I think
Looks like Martin is here.
Martin is here, yep. What we're going to do is we're going to mute everybody else except, once we start the meeting, which will start shortly, we're going to mute everybody except the board members for the roll call and the minutes and the resolution. Once we go into the public hearing, then we're going to mute everybody so that the presentation can be made by the attorney and his experts. And we'll go one by one through the board members for questions. Okay. Graham, do you know who all the participants are?
I have them listed, yep.
Okay, good. So do I. Good.
Janice?
Yeah.
Should we be able to?
This is John.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sorry,
John?
I think you need to leave me unmuted also.
Yes.
Well, as long as I can have control over my mute and not because, I need to be able to control the meeting.
Yes, and you will, John, yep.
We're not going to mute you, and we're not going to mute Keith, and we're not going to mute Arthur.
Okay,
Okay.
that's what I was about to say too. Okay.
I
Sounds
have a
good.
question.
Yes,
Okay.
Carmel, go ahead.
Should we be able to see everybody's face?
No, you won't be able to see everyone at one time since we have 1, 2, 4, 5. We have 20 people on now, so you won't be able to see everybody at once. Typically, WebEx will rotate the speaker, so that's who you'll see coming up as the primary screen. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to mute everyone and reset, and then I'll open the lines for the chair and vice chair and the attorney, and then we can get started in the meeting. So just give me 1 second. Okay, should be all set.
Okay, do you want to get started?
All right.
Rick, are you, Rick, are you ready to record? Thank you, Rick. Okay. All right, John, so I guess we're ready to go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Montclair Planning Board, conducted under our COVID-19 protocols. We are all kind of new to this, so please, everyone, bear with us. And we will do the best that we can to conduct the meeting, giving everybody due consideration as we would, as if we were all together in one room. This meeting that we are conducting this evening, of course, underneath the municipal land use laws, rather, of the state of New Jersey, requires us to make decisions and to deal with matters in accordance with the municipal land use law. And so I would ask everyone in their comments this evening, as we hear the applications, to restrict their comments to matters that the board can legally consider in making their decisions this evening. For those of you who are not quite sure how we're proceeding this evening, we have a moderator who is controlling all of the input into the system. The moderator will provide the ability for those members of the public to ask questions at particular times by allowing their mics to be active. There is a mechanism that's available to everyone. I don't know whether it's going to be activated. Is the hand raise going to be activated for any of the participants so that we know who wants to speak and when?
Yes, the hand raise feature is available for all those connected by computer.
Okay. Again, please bear with us. If for some reason you are not able to connect through this system, there is a way that you can call, in making their phone call, the public will be able to ask questions through that system also. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll go through call-in users and see if there's any questions that are, to be posed.
Okay. So we're going to try and do this and get everything done like we should. And again, I'd ask everybody to bear with us. We'll proceed now with the meeting. First thing on our agenda this evening is our roll call.
Okay.
And I'm here.
All right. Mr. Nguyen, Vice Chair Brodock.
I'm here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Okay. Counselor Schlager is excused. Ms. Willis?
Who's here?
Partially here.
Okay, she's here. Mr. Rooney?
Here.
Mr. Ian Wally?
Here.
Ms. Lockman?
Here.
Mr. Barr is excused. Mr. Gilmer?
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum.
We have our minutes from our our March 9th meeting.
Yes, I received comments and revisions to the minutes from Mr. Brodock. Carmel, did you send revisions as well?
No, they were
I thought
fine
something
as
was,
to Keith's comments. There was just a compound adjective that needed a dash, but I didn't note it.
okay.
And I believe my
Okay.
comments included Mr. Ian Wally's comments as well.
Right.
That
Okay.
wasn't the resolution though, right? I didn't comment on the minutes. This is the
Oh,
minutes
sorry,
or the
that was the resolution.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Okay, is there a
Motion to
motion
approve
to?
with, motion to approve with changes.
Okay,
Second.
who's that? Wait, who made the motion?
Mr. Schwartz.
Okay, and who made the
The second was Willis.
Okay.
Willis.
I'm going to have to do a roll call again, okay? Chair Nguyen,
Yes, approve.
Vice Chair Brodock,
Aye.
Mr. Cook,
So, hello.
okay. Mr. Rooney,
Aye.
Mr. Ian Wally, you are not eligible because you weren't there. Ms. Lockman?
Yeah.
And Mr. Gilmer?
Aye.
Okay. Good, they're approved.
Okay.
Now we have the
Next we have
resolution.
Yes. Resolution for M&M Pilot LLC, 182 Glenwood Avenue.
And I know that revisions were submitted by Mr. Ian Wally and Mr. Brodock. Are there any additional changes to the resolution?
Move for approval?
Who made the motion to approve?
I did.
Who's aye?
John? Sorry.
Okay. And who made the second?
Mr. Brodock?
Okay. I'm going to call the roll again. Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Cook is not eligible. Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Mr. Rooney?
Yes.
Mr. Ian Wally?
Yes.
Ms. Lockman?
Yes.
Okay, I found this on the web.
Oh, dear.
Wally, check it out.
My, Mr. Barr? That's Siri. You never know when she's going to stick her nose into our business.
He's not a voting member.
Mr. Gilmer?
I believe not eligible.
Yep, I see. You're not eligible. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the resolution's approved.
As amended.
Right.
Okay, now, then that brings us to the application of 670 Fullerton Condo Association.
So, Graham, that would be Mr. Robert Griffin. Should be unmuted for this.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
Okay, then we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I represent the Fullerton Condominium Association located at 5 Roosevelt Place, also known as Block 3106, Lot 12. The association is responsible for the maintenance and operation of a 107-unit condominium consisting of 6 stories. Bear with me one second. With that, the Fullerton's been in existence since about 1982. It's located in the R4 zone. This is a variance application and minor site plan approval application. The Fullerton has a lawn area with trees and ground cover to the right or east side of the property as one would face the building. Over the course of years, the property has experienced increased foot traffic through the eastern end of the property. The association has experienced people cutting through its property, most often from the parking lot above. People are sometimes not affiliated with the building and are found to hang out on the property. Sometimes they are drunk. Occasionally, they have been found throwing up on the property. Others have been observed relieving themselves on the property. Sometimes they make noise right next to the residential dwelling units. The association has tried planting shrubs and ivy and posting no trespassing signs and the like, but none of these measures have proven successful at preventing the above stated behaviors. With the advent of the Seymour Street redevelopment project, the association seeks to fence in its area in order to prevent excessive trespass and foot traffic, destruction of property, disorderly conduct, and to reduce association liability. The association proposes to construct a fence, black in color, composed of aluminum, 4 feet in height. The variance is necessary because it will be necessary to construct a 3-foot block wall with the aluminum fence rising 4 feet above it. Also, at one location, there will be a block wall with the aluminum fence rising 4 feet above that. There will be a 6-foot aluminum fence with a 6-foot gate at a walkway at a location to the rear of the building to prevent unauthorized access to the building's rear. Because the Fullerton borders on Roosevelt Place and Seymour Street, it has 2 front yards. Ordinance 347-27A2 provides that on corner lots, fences shall not exceed 4.5 feet in height. In sections at which the fence will sit atop a wall, it will be a total of 7 feet in height, including the wall. The gates, and in one case, the wall adjacent, will be 6 feet in height. Variance should be issued pursuant to the C1 and C2 portions of the statute. The property is irregularly shaped and has 2 front yards. The location in relationship to heavy foot traffic to nearby uses, including municipal parking lot, restaurants, bars, and other gathering places, makes a fence necessary. As the majority of the portion of the fence that will have a wall beneath it is next to the building coming in from the street, there is little interruption to the zone plan or zone ordinance. Other fences in the area are 6 feet high, such as the chain link fence, the municipal parking lot, and the existing 6-foot privacy fence at the rear of our own property. In this case, the positives, by reducing locations at which people can hurt themselves and hang out and cause trouble on private property, are reduced, which also increases public safety. The purposes of zoning to be fulfilled by this application include Section A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of residential and recreational uses and open space, both public and private, to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. Subsection I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And subsection K, to encourage planned unit developments which incorporate the best features of design and relate the type, design, and layout of residential development to the particular site. The association does not anticipate that there will be any negatives to the neighborhood by reason of the improvements proposed. But in the event that the board finds that any such negatives exist, the association believes that the above-mentioned factors outweigh the negatives involved in putting up the wall and the fence. And unless there are now any questions, I would like to call our first witness, which would be Barry Yackle.
Please proceed.
Mr. Yackle?
Yeah, Mr. Yacker, you're unmuted now. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Good evening, Mr. Yacker. I'm going to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm having a problem hearing you, but I can kind of hear you, yeah.
I'll have to keep my voice a little bit raised then. Would you please tell the planning board by whom you are employed?
Mr. Griffin, may I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
My name is Arthur Neese. I'm the planning board attorney. Mr. Yacker, we're going to have to swear you in. Is that okay with you?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Sir, do you solemnly swear
Yes,
the testimony? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your full name and business affiliation for the record?
Barry Sean Yacker. I'm the landscape architect for Fullerton Grounds Maintenance.
Mr. Yacker, how long have you been so employed?
I've been with Fullerton Grounds Maintenance for 7 years.
And would you please provide the planning board with a brief summary of your professional qualifications?
I've got a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from West Virginia University. I'm licensed in both New Jersey and New York. I've been practicing for a long time. Before Fullerton, I was with Dubrow's Nurseries for 17 years as their landscape architect. And you know, I've testified probably 20, 25 times in front of planning boards and zoning boards
On this basis,
all over the state.
thank you. On this basis, ladies and gentlemen, I would offer Mr. Yacker as an expert in landscape architecture.
We'll accept him.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Yacker, were you asked by the Fullerton Condominium Association to evaluate an area to the east side of the Fullerton Condominium building?
I'm sorry, I raised the volume here. What did you just ask? I'm sorry.
I asked you if you were engaged by the Fullerton Condominium Association to evaluate an area to the east side of its building.
Yes, I was.
And what was the purpose of that evaluation?
Well, basically what you had said before, they were looking to stop the foot traffic from the parking lot down to Seymour Street and re-enhance their property to make it look nicer.
And did you become engaged to develop a plan to address those issues?
Yes, I did.
So please tell the planning board about the current situation there in terms of plantings, trees, paths, etc. And then please tell the board what it is that you propose in terms of correcting those issues.
Okay, I got all that. You're breaking up. All right. Let me ask this. Do we have exhibits already set there, or do I need to tell you what the exhibits are?
Mr. Yacker, we have the exhibits pre-marked. You'll have to review that for, announcement for the board, but I have all your exhibits available here to display on the screen.
Okay. Oh, just to go through
do you want me to read the list?
Yeah, maybe Ms. Talley can read the list of the exhibits so we have that.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, let me go through the list. A1 is the cover sheet of the site plan dated March 5th, 2020. A2 is sheet 2 of the site plan with the fence and wall details dated March 5th, 2020. Sheet 3 is the planting layout for the site plan. That's A3, is sheet 3, dated March 5th. A4 is the photo from Seymour Street. A5 is the photo looking down Seymour Street towards the theater. A6 is a photo viewed from the Fullerton walkway towards Seymour Street. A7 is a view from Seymour Street towards the parking lot. A8 is a photo from the view from Seymour Street towards the Fullerton walkway that serves the condo association. A9 is a detail of the proposed wall. A10 is a sample of the proposed wall, photo number 2. And just for the record, I also marked the proof of publication as A11, the affidavit of service is A12, the planning report from my office dated is A13, and the board engineer's report is A14. And I believe that Mr. Griffin, you do have a copy of that list of exhibits.
I do. Thank you.
I think Mr. Forth is trying to signal something.
Sure.
Yes, folks, you have us muted. The first witness asked if there were any questions, but there was no opportunity to ask then because you had us muted. I think from a procedural standpoint, you either need to open the mics up as this goes along in case people want to jump in, or when a witness stops speaking, like the first attorney, you need to then open up the mics, particularly when he asks a question, if anybody wants to ask. Okay, that said.
First person who spoke, Martin, was not a witness, it was the attorney.
Yes, I understand. What I wanted to get into the record is, and it is not in the exhibits presented, is the actual fence exhibit that is in the plan, but not a true representation of that fence. And there is a note on top of it that says with spikes, which is precisely the point that we had gotten into when we saw this at the Development Review Committee. The actual fence itself is an important factor for what they're proposing here. So is there an actual visual picture of the fence you are proposing other than the rendering where you then suggest that there are some additional spikes on top?
I
I think we'll get
actually,
into that testimony with, just let me correct it. I think we'll get into that testimony with Mr. Yacker because sheet 2, which he's going to present, exhibit 2, shows the fence without the spikes.
Yes,
Which is what the DRC asked for. So we'll get to that
I actually
testimony.
I forgot to take that. No,
with Mr. Yacker.
You were kind of stepped on a little bit there. So to clarify, there is a rendering, not a picture of the actual fence being proposed, which was one of the key points that came up before the Development Review Committee. Said rendering, however, says spikes will be added, but there is no image of that unless I'm misunderstanding what you're presenting. That said, can you please respond to the question whether you have an accurate representation of the fence being proposed for this very public view?
There's no, Barry, there's no picture of it, right?
There's no spikes on top. I just missed that on when I did the revisions. I missed the wording. The picture is actually what the fence is going to be. There are no spikes. If you look back, that was still the wording from the first plan. I missed it on this plan, taking it off.
Got it. So the fence you're proposing, is the rendering without spikes, and it has the circles at the top. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Right. The fence that we're proposing from your guidance, I went down, I looked at the school, and it's basically similar.
Understood. Like I said, your description noted spikes. You've now clarified that. I just wanted to be clear about that. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
But I think whoever's controlling the meeting needs to still address the issue that if somebody wants to ask a question while the witness is speaking, everybody's muted. So either everybody has to wait till the end of the witness or figure out some way to do that by some designation visual aid. Okay, thank you.
I just have an addition to this. Janice, I would propose to add as A15 the application along with the January 2, 2020 letter of Mr. Griffin and the copy of the Fullerton Condominium master deed, which was appended to it.
Okay, A15 is the application, A16 is the letter from Mr. Griffin, and A17 will be the master deed.
Okay.
And Ms. Lockman has a question. She's unmuted now.
Okay, so since we're talking about the fence and looking at the rendering that shows the fence, I thought that from what I read, you wanted the actual fence on top of the retaining wall, so it wouldn't be possible for anybody to sit on the wall.
Right.
But it seems to me that the retaining wall is, built up, and then on the back of the end of the retaining wall, the fence starts. So clearly somebody could be sitting on the wall.
Going to me again? Okay, I'm sorry. We're just kind of out of order. To put a fence on top of the wall is not very secure. I mean, you get a fence mounted into the caps, and you could just push over the fence and the caps. So you would have to put post footings in behind that wall and have that behind the wall. The reason that we made it a 3-foot wall with that fence right behind it, we did it for a few reasons. One is because a 3-foot wall is not comfortable to hop up on and sit. And when you have the fence right up against that, you're only giving yourself about a foot. It's not a comfortable area to gather. That's why we didn't make it a standard like 18 to 24 inch seat wall. But like I said, to mount the fence on top of that wall would not be a very secure fence.
Well, go ahead, Carmel, sorry.
Well, I was just pointing that out because the visuals seem to, in my view, contradict what you had said in the written statement. So, I have no problem with what you're saying, but I thought the point of this was so you don't have people hanging out. And it certainly seems to me that they could be sitting on that 3-foot retaining wall, but be that as it may.
No, that's a viable point.
Like
why
I said,
would
that was a reason for the height.
The height is 3 feet, which that's a nice place to sit.
So, I mean,
It's not.
Hobson's choice, I think, which is to say that if we choose to put it on top of the wall, our wall will be crumbling before you know it. But
no, that's not the case. Why don't you put a stone cap, like a blue stone top on the wall? Why can't you use a natural stone cap on top of that, or even a concrete cap, and drill the fence into it, which is done all the time? That's not the case.
You could drill the fence into this cap too, but whatever you put on there it's only a 3-inch cap, no matter what you do. So if you put a 4-foot fence on that, then you've got leverage. Somebody pushes on the top of the fence, it just takes the whole cap off the fence. I mean, off the wall. It takes the.
Not if the cap is well secured to the main wall.
You could secure. I mean, we're using epoxy glue, which is like the strongest thing you can use. You still have that chance of it coming off. We could do it any way you want to do it. I'm just giving you professional, opinion of what's going to be safest.
Well, I think my colleague has pointed out the incongruity here, that people are going to sit on the very wall you don't want them to hang out on.
Right. I mean, you could make the retaining wall wider, couldn't you? And then secure the fence within the middle of it? I mean, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just saying it's what you're showing here seems to defeat the purpose of what you said you wanted to do, which was to try to avoid people hanging out in the area and doing bad things.
Can you make the top cap on an angle so it's uncomfortable to sit on? Like put it on a 30 or 45 degree angle?
You can, yeah. You could do that.
I can tell you one other thing that might happen too, is that you have skateboarders who will jump right on that 3-foot retaining wall, because my son was a big skateboarder, and you're asking for trouble.
You're only talking about a 1-foot cap there, though. I mean, it's a 1-foot space.
Hey, this is Tony. Can I ask a quick
So, to
question?
get it-
Am I on mute?
No, you're unmuted, Tony. Go ahead.
Okay, so whatever happens with the wall, but I don't want to talk about the wall construction. But if Barry could talk about why it's not on the property line, and maybe the lawyer could too. I mean, it's very unusual to see a wall constructed in the middle of a property. My assumption is that the blue dotted line is the property line. So are you ceding maintenance of this area to the city, or will you still maintain it? I'm just very curious about why you chose the location there. Because you do own everything up to the blue line, right?
Yeah. There's also a sidewalk there, though, right, Barry?
Yeah.
And there's an existing, let's say, 18-inch high-looking fence at that location now. So,
Well, I guess my point is that when people fence off their property, they usually put a fence on the property line. So my question is why, if that green area is yours, why don't you fence it so that it's included within the fence of the apartment building? Why are you fencing your green area off your property?
Isn't the green area the wall?
The blue line is a property line. So my understanding is that the blue line is the property boundary of the apartment house, and the wall is not on the property line. It's just weird. Normally, if I own that building, I would put a fence on the property line.
It's the red line with the circles on it, which is really within inches of the property line.
Oh, okay. Tony, I think was
Wait a minute.
mistaken.
Well, whoa. The survey that we have shows the property line to be inclusive of what you call the limit of disturbance. That's why we love surveys. So I'm looking at a James Held property survey, and all of that area is a part of the condominium. If the survey that we've been given, let me ask you a question. What is the blue dotted line on the plan that we're looking at?
The blue line is the property line.
It's the property line.
So
You're correct.
Why are you fencing a part of the condominium's property off of the condominium? Unless I'm missing something.
If I could just help clarify, I'm going to do some circling, Tony, and if you could just let me know if what you're referring to is correct. I guess, Mr. Ianwali, you're saying that this area will be outside of the fence and wall, but this is part of the condominium property, correct?
Well, according to the survey we have, yeah.
Right. And then the fence is going along, let me do a different color. The fence is going along this area here and here. Yeah. So right. I guess your question is who will maintain the red circled area that's
well, I guess the
outside
basic question is why would you fence off property that's yours? Normally you put a fence on the boundary.
And we may someday put it up at that municipal parking area, but the object here was to prevent people from having those pathways down through the municipal parking area, some of which go down toward the building and others of which go down toward the street.
If you put a fence up at the property line, you don't need a wall, you just put a fence there. Unless I'm totally missing something. I just really don't get it. Well, why don't you just put a fence where your property is and you don't need a wall?
Because it's on a slope.
No, I mean, where at the edge of the municipal parking lot. The property line is, just put a fence there. There's no grade difference.
I think that the fence is actually on the property line. It's on the western property line. It's on the eastern property line, not the western property line. And I believe, Mr. Yacker, that there was testimony given.
No, I'm looking at the plan that's on your screen right now. Do you see the big blue dotted line that goes vertically on the plan? That's the property line. I'm being told that's the property line. And the red kind of circular segmented line is the fence.
Yeah, so the
fencing off.
The fence is proposed here, and Mr. Ianwali is asking why the fence isn't proposed here.
Right.
Yeah, that seems easy. No walls necessary.
Well, at the bottom portion, the portion that goes perpendicular to the street, we were afraid that the municipal parking clearing would push against such a fence. And we wanted to make sure that the fence was down toward the property line. At the top portion of the portion perpendicular to the street, there is some relatively decent growth there that hasn't been disturbed until you get approximately halfway down that line. All of a sudden, there are paths cutting down, and there's a doorway to one of our units right about halfway down that line that we wanted to protect from trespassing.
I'm missing your point. If you fence in your property.
From where, Tony?
Well, put a fence along the blue line. That's the property line.
So you're saying, let's just be clear, it's very hard with obviously where we're, not sitting in one room looking at a screen.
Well, I'm looking at the image that's being projected by Graham on the screen right now.
Yes, exactly. But what you're saying, I just want to clarify. You're saying fence in their property along the municipal parking lot boundary. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, most people will put a fence along the property line. I don't really get why. I mean, if I owned it, if I lived in the 6-story apartment house, and that could be sort of a nice area, well maintained for the apartment building, why would you ever give up green space and give it to whoever? I mean, you're going to be burdened with maintaining it.
You're not giving up green space, and the problem we had.
You guys are okay. Forget it.
Listen, no. I'm just saying.
I guess you guys want to do it. It just seems strange.
We did look at that option, but you also have to think about snow load of where they're putting snow in that parking lot, and we don't want to be replacing that fence every year.
Well,
okay.
If they damage your fence, if the town damages your fence, then they're responsible for it.
Yeah, but we also don't want. And someday you are correct. We may actually come back and want to fence the rest of that off.
So,
but now we're worried about security and making sure that people in from the street in light of the new construction that's happening.
I'm confused. Is the issue stopping people coming from the municipal parking lot down through your property to the street to have a potential shortcut to now the Wellmont area, which is, as you know, from blocked off at the end of Seymour Street? It's not an easy transition now. It's a whole different thing for what's being proposed. Is the intention to block people from coming from the municipal lot and or people going from Roosevelt to the municipal lot, or is the issue to block people from Roosevelt coming onto your property?
I would say both. Putting a fence at the Seymour Street line prevents people from up to the parking lot or down from the parking lot. And also any traffic coming back from the Seymour Street redevelopment project from hanging out there.
Well, okay, let's stay with this. If you're walking up the street and you want to have a quick path to the municipal lot and you see there's 20 feet ahead there's a fence, you're still not going to go through the property if you're standing on the street. So you would eliminate, by putting the fence along the municipal parking lot boundary, you would eliminate those coming from and to the lot just because they'd see there's a fence there. So now we're left with people walking along the street that might want to walk onto a green space there, use the green area.
Yes, that's the first place you can hang out. It's the first place that if you didn't have a bathroom, you could go. It's the first place that you could gather with a couple of friends. So yes.
Well, you could still, if you wanted to, you could still fence it off. It's your property. Right. You could put a fence completely around it if you wanted. I guess my only reaction is that it's a very odd. I mean, fences usually aren't in the middles of properties. That's my point.
Right, but I understand.
And then the second concern is that
And we
who's
may
going to
very well
maintain that?
fence it
Because
off.
if you put a fence there, the condominium they may cede control of that in sort of de facto basis back to the municipal parking area. I mean, maintaining that's going to be kind of a nuisance. You'd have to go all over the place to, worry about that.
So, and my final point is, if you're worried about people coming onto the property and using it as a toilet, they could do the same now from where you're proposing to place the fence, coming from the municipal lot. So some people are in the municipal.
That is true. However, it may be that we eventually fence that off as well.
Wouldn't that be why wouldn't you
all that money right now?
Okay, so why wouldn't you fence that first to then see the impact, which would be less obtrusive to the public right of way and to the public's view along the street, and then come in and make a determination that, hey, you've got a lot of people hanging out there, and here we've seen this, we've had so many arrests. Because what you're proposing is to, even though you did pick the fence that I suggested that is, better looking than a typical playground fence, you are, putting something into the public viewing area that's, not particularly the most pleasant to see, and requesting a variance with that as well. So it seems to me logically, based on the needs that you've expressed, that the first thing to do would be to fence off the municipal parking lot, and then take an assessment after the construction is finished and the Wellmont is operating, whether you really do have a problem now that people can't go through because they see they can't go through, rather than start with a placement right in the public viewing, and then come back later and say, oh, we need to fence off the municipal parking lot. It seems to me, from a logic and a cost standpoint, first place to go is the municipal lot. Well, that said, please carry on.
Well, with all that said, the second reason for putting a wall in down there was to lessen the slope.
Who's speaking right now?
Sorry.
Barry.
Barry. So it's getting kind of hard to follow who's speaking. So I think I would really, I kind of understand because I know your voices, but I think, Graham, we're going to have to go back to a more formal way so we can identify who's speaking when.
Yeah, everybody's going to need to at least announce their name prior to speaking.
I think we're going to have to mute the planning board members, just so that, because otherwise it's really not evident from this recording who's speaking.
Someone's typing too, it seems. That's being picked up.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not a good recording. So let's move ahead, but let's try and not have everybody talking over each other. And so that was Robert Griffin. That was you. That was just speaking, right?
Right, and then Barry started to add.
Okay. So go ahead.
So Barry, go ahead.
Barry, yeah. I understand all of what we were just talking about, but the second reason for doing a wall was to lessen the severity of the slopes. If you look at Exhibit A6, A5.
Why don't we go through Grant, can you pull up the exhibits?
Mm-hmm. Are we seeing those now on the screen?
Yes.
A4. Mm-hmm.
A4 basically is showing you the view from Seymour Street up the slope. You can see how steep that slope is. You can also see the trails coming through the slope.
So here's my point. This is Tony. I was the guy that, if you put a fence at the top of the slope, you don't worry about the slope at all.
Right.
Put a fence up there, and then you have, look at all the fill you have to place. You'd have to place 3 feet of fill around those trees to increase the grade. The tree root systems would be, we'd probably bury a good portion of those trees. So from where I'm sitting, if there's a fence at the top of the hill, that's about it's like 1/10 the work of everything that you're proposing. And plus, I just don't get it. And then you create this little narrow corridor. You've got to, the people in the building now to go into that building or traverse it have to walk through this little narrow space when they could have some,
Well, as you can see, though, we're trying to beautify this area anyway. That railroad tie wall is ugly. It should be taken out. Something should be done there. You can see the ivy in A6 right there. The people right next to the unit door that you can see on the right of that photograph. People have already established a trail down there. And I understand your point about building it at the top, but also at the bottom, that area deserves to be built up a little bit and made nice.
Well, it needs to be. This is Tony again. The solution is to maintain the property properly. It doesn't have anything to do with building a wall. It's not necessarily going to be solving the problem of ivy encroaching over some. You just need to maintain it better.
There have been efforts to maintain that area over time, and they've all been overrun with trails and
I know, but if you
damage and
you guys are, I'm going to vote no on this, by the way, because you guys don't listen. So if you fence off, I don't understand your logic. If you fence off the property from where the people are walking, to Martin's point, aren't you solving the problem? You're saying that people are walking down the slope, but if there's a fence at the top of the slope, you eliminate that problem, no?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I'm not argue with you. I'm just saying that it's ugly anyway, if you look at A4.
It is ugly.
And that we would want to do something nice there. And as long as we would do something nice there, we wouldn't want to, if we took that railroad tie wall out, we would have to put something back there. So we were talking about putting a keystone wall in there anyway, okay? But if we put a keystone wall in there anyway, then if people want to jump up 3 feet and walk around back there from the street, they can. And that was the idea there. But I do understand your point about the top. In fact, we may very well have fenced the rest of that in. We just didn't have the money right now to do both. We wanted to make a nice impact on the front of the property first.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Schwartz, yes.
I think Tony's hit it right on the head. And your point after about beautifying the area also would work. Fence the top in with the same fence you've proposed. Then build another wall if you want down at the bottom, beautify the front, do whatever you want there, and then revisit if you need a double fence later. But your logic just doesn't hold, because if you stop people coming down from the top, there's no longer going to be any trails, and they're not going to overrun your plantings that you've now done to beautify the property. And so the streetscape will now look much nicer. You won't be imposing a wall and a fence that's, not going to look all that good, but and you've solved your security problem. So if your fence first put at the bottom didn't solve your security problem, you'd be fencing at the top anyway later. So start at the top, put the fence there, beautify your area as you wish in the green space, and then if you're still having a people problem, come back. And if you've put a wall there on the property, then we can talk about adding another fence at the bottom, because it's become a serious security issue with people coming out of Seymour. I don't think you're going to have the kind of problem you anticipate, because there's a step down now from Seymour going into the Wellmont Seymour area. And so I don't think you're going to have that kind of pass-through that you have now. If people can't escape from the municipal lot going through your property to get to now the Seymour Street Arts and Entertainment area, they're going to take another path. So you've solved your problem with a fence at the top, as Tony adeptly pointed out, and the logic of what he's proposing, I think, holds really well.
All right, so this is the point at which I would usually turn and ask my client questions. Can,
This
Pat,
is Mr.
Janice,
Griffin speaking, right?
Can you unmute Pat Davis, please? Pat, can you hear me?
I can. I can. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are unmuted now. You've heard the discussion between Mr. Schwartz and the other board member. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. About why don't we put the fence at the top there instead of at the bottom? What do you think about that?
Do I need to be sworn in or state my name?
Yes,
Okay.
before you do that. This is Arthur Neese. I am the board attorney. May I ask you, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Would you please state your full name and your affiliation with the applicant?
My name is Patricia Davis, and I am the president of the Fullerton Condominium Association.
Thank you.
So, Pat, you've heard the discussion that we've been having. This is a proposal for what the board members who are speaking believe is a alternative that might, in the first instance, be less expensive and might also solve the problem in a logical way. And it's been suggested that if we need a wall in the front, we should come back. What do you think about that?
Well, I happen to live on the east side, the Seymour Street side of the building, so I'm very well aware of the traffic, not only from the parking lot with just foot traffic back and forth through the parking lot, but there's also a walkway along the side between our building and the parking lot that leads past not only the residence unit, they have an external entrance to their unit, but it also leads around the back of the building to our boiler room. Our goal really is to put the fence on the street side and also have a gate that would block pedestrians from walking along that back path of the building. So the fence really does make sense for us to be on the street side because it allows us to also put a gate there. And as Mr. Griffin suggested, we would also want to put a gate along the parking lot side of the building as well. And perhaps we may not need a variance for that side of it. So it's more important for us to put the gate, the fence on the street side because it gives us the opportunity to put a gate, keep people from walking onto the back part of our property. It also prevents people who may be in the area from using that not only as a pass-through area, but also to prevent them from using the area as a bathroom, place to congregate and drink and smoke or do whatever with drugs on their way to various events at the Wellmont, which happens very often. Late at night, there's a lot of foot traffic in that area. So it's not just people using the parking lot, it's people who are in the area who are going to restaurants or going to the Wellmont or other businesses on Bloomfield Avenue that have an opportunity to congregate in that space. As you see, that tree that's there provides enough shelter from light that allows them to congregate in that space and do whatever, which is a disturbance to our neighbors and particularly those residents that live right there along that street side of the building.
Ms. Davis, just to follow up your point, what would be the purpose in having a gate blocking people from going down that path to the back by your boiler area? What would people want, or what are they doing going down to the back of the building there?
Smoking marijuana, urinating.
But wouldn't they do that in any building? Isn't the fact that they really are going back there because it's an access back up to the parking lot? Isn't that really what's, I mean?
No, it's actually not that easy to get. When you walk straight to the back, there's actually another wall. The grade, remember, there's quite a bit of a grade that comes down. So there's a back retaining wall along that back path. As you can see the other side of that. I don't know if we have a shot of that angle. Right where that pointer is, the retaining wall back there. So, and then it goes around to the left. So you're able to walk back there, and if you could do any number of things while you're back there. But that, if we ran the fence along that side and had a gate right there, it would prevent that traffic from moving back into that area. Exactly.
Well,
Graham?
this is Tony. I don't want to overstate. I've been talking a lot, but you could block off access by putting a fence, a small segment of fence across to meet another fence on the other side. I just look at that row of what looks like, I don't know, boxwoods or something there. You'd have to bring in 3 feet of fill. You'd be an enormous amount of fill that's needed to build up the back of that wall. I mean, that looks like your little wall there is only a few inches off the ground. So it's a massive construction project that, I think could be solved with some simple fencing, even if there was, a fence that ran kind of where that's Grant has drawn that square. If you go from west to east on the plan, I guess, well, in reality, that would be like from whatever west, yeah, I guess it is, or south to north, and catch up where that car is on the plan with the lights that are
Right.
illuminated. You could put a fence there and sort of block access to the back way.
Right.
But it's an awfully expensive site plan to bring in all that fill.
Yeah, that back retaining wall is about 5 feet, if not more, high.
I know, but what I'm saying, in the
it's
front,
not
you have there's no grade difference in the front. In order to construct a 3-foot wall, you've got to backfill it with an enormous amount of fill. I mean, I don't know why you would ever want to do that. That's, 3-foot wall. And you're changing most people put a retaining wall up because they have a grade to have to manage. There is no grade issue here. Even in the front, it's only a foot. So you're creating a wall where no wall is really needed.
Right.
You have to put the fill behind it just to have the retaining wall. I mean, nothing against Barry, but this doesn't seem like the greatest landscape plan. I apologize, Barry, but it seems like there's a lot of effort that could be redeployed.
Well, our goal really is to create a wall and fence that would be high enough and make sense, that would keep traffic from going through that area, keeps the kids from riding their bikes down that slope now, gives us an opportunity to turn into some green space that we can eventually use for our residents. So it's a multi-purpose.
But that's not my point. My point, I don't think that if you put a fence, however high is allowed, at the property line where most properties have fences, most fences are on property lines. You fence off your property from the municipal area, that's done, okay? Unless someone wants to scale a, whatever high fence. And then you could put a small segment of fence to block off the area to your rear yard, just like many homeowners have a fence that's parallel to the street if they want to block off their driveway or something. But I'm not trying to be difficult about this. I also think this could save the condominium a lot of money to not have to do all this.
I think Tony's hit it right on the head here on multiple fronts. If you put a back fence up on the parking lot side, and even if you want to block people from going down that path and somehow create a fence there, you could put prickly hollies in the front rather than spend money building a wall and a fence along the east-west run of the property, right where the retaining wall is, and block people from going onto there. If you really wanted to do that, if you thought the people are congregating there, plant some holly bushes that have pricklers, and nobody's going to go on that green space, and you're saving yourself a lot of money. I mean, any way you look at this, Tony's logic really holds up here. Fence along the parking lot side. If you really want a fence at the building face to block going down that path there, if you're concerned about that, and you don't have to bring in backfill, you don't have to build a wall in the front, plant some annoying bushes that no one's going to walk through to get onto the green space, and the condo owners are saving money and have a better planting area that they can look at and use. It just doesn't hold up. What you're proposing from a fiscal, from an impact on the community standpoint, just doesn't hold from your needs. And there are clearly other solutions here to solve your security problem. So I have to support Tony's positions here fully. Take the fence picked and put it up at the top. That's the suggestion.
If we were to put it up at the top, and we needed the fence in front, would we have to come back?
No, as long as your fence still meets our height requirements. Oh, actually, yes, you would. I'm sorry, you would, because it's part of a site plan. So what I would suggest is you come back with an amended site plan, or amend this, come back with an amendment, and the board would hear that, because your commercial use, they can either approve it conditionally, or you come back with an amendment showing the location of the fence.
Great idea.
So, if we wanted to build the wall, we wouldn't have to come back, correct? And if we took Mr. Schwartz's suggestion and put, let's say, sticker bushes up there, we wouldn't have to come back, would we? That would be just a application to the building inspector, right?
You hold on, let me just double check my definition of minor site plan here. Nope, if you put a retaining wall, that does require minor site plan. So the wall itself requires minor site plan approval.
Even if we were to just replace the railroad tie wall that we have there now with stone block?
If you're going to replace it with something at the same height, it says if it's an exact replacement, that does not require site plan approval. But if you are replacing it with a different material, that requires site plan approval. Now, if it meets our zoning ordinance and doesn't require a variance, then you can go to the Development Review Committee.
Hey, Janice,
the reason you're before the planning board is you have a variance.
Why is the retaining wall under 3 feet? Well, why is that trigger site plan? Is there a difference between commercial use and residential? I thought that, so any commercial property that builds a wall has to go through a site plan process?
Yes, a minor site plan, yes.
Regardless, so really?
This is a residential property, though, is it not? The condominium, it's not an apartment building.
It's a multifamily building. It's only 1 and 2 family residences that are excluded from the site plan provisions. As a multifamily building, our site plan requirements apply.
So
it's not just the fact that the fence was creating a height variance. So regardless of, because that I understand, there's a variance required for that because the fence was being located not the height of the wall, back from the wall. So even if it's odd that for a 3-foot wall you need a site plan review, but I don't know the ordinance.
We allow that, again, that doesn't go to the full planning board. That's something that's handled by our minor site plan, by our Development Review Committee.
Okay.
If there's no variance.
Adding
the reason for that is because it can't be denied if it's within the parameters of the zoning law.
Right.
So it really, since the board can't deny it, the planning, the committee is just making sure that it meets all the requirements of the regulation.
Okay. So the only reason why we're hearing this application is because there was a variance for wall height, because you add the height of the fence to the wall, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So we've spent a good deal of money getting to this point. Starting over might eat up the money that would be saved by trying the method suggested tonight.
I bet your wall is a lot more than, I bet there's $40,000 at least of wall and fill there.
Yeah, why you would want to put a wall, which defeats the very purpose of not creating a place to congregate for people, it just doesn't make sense. Tony's saving you money here. Put the fence at the top, green plant in any way you want to beautify your property, and if for some reason put a fence up blocking people from going down that walkway, if that's a real issue. But I think that's the way to go here to start. You save yourself some money. You get yourself a nice green area that if you need to plant some hollies, to sticky hollies, you'll stop people from coming off the street there and still have a nice improved green area. It just doesn't make sense what you're proposing. I think you have a solution in hand right here.
And Dennis, if a wall is approved without a fence on top of it, if it's a 3-foot wall, and it doesn't need a variance, how long after the approval, how much time do they have to construct the wall?
They have 2 years.
So you could do the fencing around the property perimeter, which will solve your cut-through problem. If you still want to put a wall there, you still have 2 years to decide whether or not a wall is appropriate without having to come back. And then is there a possibility when after the 2 years, could they possibly get it extended? Or do they have to come back when they do?
Well, my suggestion is, since I know you spent a lot of time on this application, is go back, revise the site plan. You could come back at the next planning board meeting with the revisions that reflect the comments that you heard tonight and get an approval, and then you don't have to, and you can move ahead with that approval. If you make changes and you want to do just a wall, you still have to get minor site plan approval from the Development Review Committee. So since we've already started this process, I think you go back, you make the changes, and we can hear you at our next meeting.
Barry, do you have anything to add? Is Barry muted?
What is the height required if we were to move the fence back to the parking lot? Is it still a 4-foot requirement, or can you go 6 foot?
I'll have to look in. I'll have to look and see if it goes up to 6, because it depends on where it falls in your yard setbacks.
Yeah, it's a difficult property because you really have 3 front yards on this property, so it's tough.
Right. So I don't really want to answer that right now. I can look into what's the front yard, what's the side yard, what's the rear yard, because that determines the height of the fence.
Yeah, but they get at least 4 feet, possibly 6, right?
Right.
So that should solve your
corner.
If we were going to put a 6-foot gate at the corner of that building, then we would need a fence to go back along it up until we meet the property line anyway, right?
Well, if you put a gate on there doing the way they're looking at doing it, you would have to come up the hill and tie into the corner of that fence that's at the top of the, it's at the parking lot.
Okay.
And you would have to tie it in at the back of the property to keep people from coming through. So you'd have to tie it in to where that retaining wall is, to where that existing fence is.
Yeah, it looks like there's an existing 6-foot wood privacy fence back there that you might be able to tie into.
Yeah, that comes across, that stops at the corner of that parking lot right there, that fence. But yeah, you could come across, you'd have to come back around, you'd have to put a gate in there. But I mean, I would assume since we have a 6-foot fence there, that 6 foot would be the code.
I wouldn't assume that.
That's why I'm talking to you. So
right, and that's why let me look into it in more detail. I don't think I can answer that tonight.
Okay.
All right, Pat, do you have anything to add? Or should we just?
I do not. I do not. I think we have to go back and rework the plan. I mean, this is not ideal for us. certainly. We've talked about all these issues already about, having prickly bushes and the likes. We've gone through the pros and cons of it, but, what can we do? We'll go back and take another look at it.
Okay. I have no applications for the meeting on May 4th, but I don't think that gives you enough time to make the changes and get the revised plans.
Yeah, Carmel has
Sorry.
a question. I'm going to unmute you, Carmel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, clearly the property owner has looked at this left, right, and center and come up with a plan that they feel they want to use. That, in my view, is not offensive at all to the public. It seems like they're using an attractive fence. If that's what they want to do, why are we suggesting that something else is better? I mean, they certainly have looked at this, and I think, the property owner, what they want to do, if it's not offensive, should be what rules. I don't understand why we're going, it may be a better plan, what Tony is suggesting, but that's not what they want to do.
Well, you've made the point that you believe it's not offensive. Others may not agree with that.
Right.
And since they're asking a variance,
Carmel, is that we have to grant a variance here.
yes.
In order to do what the property owner wants to do, we have to give them a variance.
I understand that, but in my view, I would give them a variance.
All right. But if there's a less intrusive way for the public impact, then that's the alternative. That's the alternative proposal.
Right. It seems to me that their concern is what goes on in Seymour Street, and they're trying to protect the property on Seymour Street from people coming off Seymour Street and going by those trees that are there in a little, huddle and doing what they do. And if that's they've experienced what happens with the public, so why shouldn't what their position is kind of rule over what we think is the better plan? Is my
That's a really good point. This is Tony. It's a really good point. If I may just counter that, one of the concerns that, apart from the variance, and I echo, I mean, there's a reason why 7-foot walls, which include the fence and the wall, aren't included. They are considered obtrusive. That's why they require variances. But one of my big concerns is that if the property is segmented into essentially two properties, and by dividing the property that's kind of green and nice now, once that fence goes there, I'm very concerned about who is going to maintain that. I think it's kind of going to be left to the municipality to maintain. There was no provision or no testimony as to why, for example, there's no gate to get back into that area, which leads me to believe that it really wasn't given a thought. If it were going to be maintained, and I apologize if there is one, I didn't see one on the plan, some sort of convenience gate would have been included.
Graham?
There's a gate at the top. There's an
Did you
opening.
lose audio?
Where is there a gate?
If you go up to the top of those steps in the back, right where the end of the wooden fence is open.
Yeah.
That's how they maintain now.
Yeah, but when you fence it all in, it's much harder to maintain that. You've got to take whatever whatever. Okay, my point is that by not having the fence on the property line, it's going to appear that green area is under the ownership of the town. So I'm concerned about that, because if the property were fenced in and if it were seemingly apparent that it belonged to the apartment house, the responsibility sort of falls, no matter who's maintaining that property. I think that it's clearly a better arrangement to have a fence on a property line.
Then what does the front? Why would you not think that that would look like it's owned by the town? If you fence off at the top of the parking lot, then that slope there, why would you not think that's part of the town? Why it's not incorporated into the?
Well, it certainly. I mean, it certainly would look a lot more like the town owns it if you fence it into the town's property. I think our next application needs to be heard. I'm sorry. You guys do what you want. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a waste of money to build a wall. And I tell you, but whatever. I hear you want to do what you want to do, but it just doesn't seem like a wise use of money.
We honestly can't afford to have the board vote against this variance and then start completely over. So if the tenor of the board is that we should go back and plan this again and take into account your suggestions, and that's the way the board feels, then we will do that.
Yeah. I think ideally too, if I really would have put I'm not a planner, I know, but ideally, what if we were all working in unison, you would create a safe space, a little easement across that slope somehow to allow people to safely walk between the parking lot and Seymour Street. I didn't say that before, but that would be really cool if you could do that. Have it be very safe. I mean, people are sort of cutting across the grass, and that's the shortest distance between 2 points, but we can't require you to do that. But I think if all parties were really thinking about how to do this properly, that probably should be included in the plan.
Well, the problem with that, of course, is that then we would be liable for whatever we built back there between the street and the parking lot. And
well, I think you can handle that contractually with the town. Listen, I'm not requesting that. I'm just saying that fencing off this area. I mean, this is a walking path that people are kind of used to taking, and I think that accommodating this path, which seems to be a convenient path for people, is probably a better plan than fencing it off. But listen, it's we don't need to go there.
No, I mean, that it's not that I'm opposed to thinking about the town taking a little tiny sliver of that property and maintaining it and building it themselves. It's just that we don't want the liability for it. We don't want the liability that's there now of people cutting through.
Supreme Court, all municipal court sessions
that could be handled by
are suspended
easement
through April
and, as Tony said,
26.
contractually.
During this time period, those
I don't think
certain
you want to go
emergent
there,
municipal
but
court matters
that's
will
a
continue.
possibility. I think he's given you a pathway to save money and still accomplish your security and construction needs, and with an opportunity to then come back later if what you do next doesn't work. That to me seems like the more logical path to go here. You still can block your people from going down the pedestrian pathway with a gate there if you really need to. You can block on the backside, and you've stopped the people from coming down from the parking lot. I mean, that to me seems like the first pass to take a look what's happening. Because if you put a wall and a fence in the front, and then people are still coming down into that green area and destroying it, now you've still messed yourself up. So either way, I just think the logic holds for doing what Tony has suggested here. And from a cost standpoint, I think he's an engineer and he's right on target. You're going to spend a lot more money with backfill and building the wall. This way you're just building essentially a fence and a gate, and then you can spend your money on green plantings. That's I don't agree with my colleague Carmel Lockman that you've reviewed this and we shouldn't impact. You're asking for a variance that impacts the public view, and consequently the town does have a say in what happens here. So we've tried to help you and made suggestions in the process from a construction and design aesthetic point of view as well, that fits in with the master plan and maintaining community character, neighborhood character. And I think you've been given some helpful suggestions here to make some simple modifications to your plan and come back again. And my feeling is you'd likely get approval. I mean, if you wanted to sound people out today, maybe you could do that too.
I did have one question. This is Keith. I had one question. Graham, if you can go back to 8.5, in the current configuration, Mr. Yacker, of the site plan, is the intent to backfill 3 feet of soils up against these trees?
It's not really going to be 3 feet of soil. You've got a foot there. We're going to try not to impact any of the root system of the tree. Will there be some cover on that? Yeah, there's going to be some.
Because I think that's where, I got confused is that, I'm looking at the wall and fence detail on layout plan L1, and it shows backfill up against the fence posts, 3 feet high, plantings with mulch at finished grade, and, in other spots of that plan, it says raised grade to the plant area to help prevent washout. It looked like to me that you were putting in the 3 feet, and because it seems like when you talk about stability of those fence posts as well, one of the things that you certainly need is enough backfill to hold that in, to hold the concrete in, so that people aren't toppling it. I guess with a 6-inch sleeve of concrete, that's probably heavy enough that maybe that can hold it in. But it just seemed like you were going to pack soil right up against the tree trunks that would negatively impact those trees and they end up dying.
Well, when you're really only talking about the one tree, and we're not looking to compact any soil on the roots, period. I mean, behind the wall, you've got a foot of gravel. That area where those trees are would be lower. They're the only trees that actually are impacted by the wall. The one further down on that A5, that one we're recommending come out because it's in decline. It's leaning toward the street. And when it goes, it's going to wind up going across the street, taking out the wires. That's the only tree that we were looking to take out. That should come out no matter what, whether the fence is up top or down below.
So how far back? So you've got the wall, which is 12 inches wide. You've got a 6-inch sleeve of concrete for the posts. You've got is it another foot of gravel, or is the foot of gravel kind of in that 6-inch?
The foot of gravel from the wall out. So the concrete will be within the.
Okay, so you've got from the front of the wall, you've got 2 feet, and then you get to your backfill where you have plantings at grade. What's the plan to slope that backfill then? Do you have enough room? I mean, how much room do you have between the group of 8 maples and the front of the wall?
You don't have a tremendous amount of space there. You have, 3 feet? So yes, there is going to be some soil on the front end of that tree. Not enough to kill the tree.
So how far up the tree would you think the soil would go?
You've got a tangled root system of, roots of all of those trees going back through that slope. So putting soil, a little bit of soil on the front, I'm not saying you're dumping, tons of soil on there. You're not. Is not going to impact that tree to a huge degree because you have a massive amount of root system all around it.
And you would say the same thing for the 9-inch maple that's up near the gate?
That one you're not even going to affect.
I guess I'm confused. It looks like
to the root flare, basically. It's not going to be a lot. I'm not looking to grade this from the parking lot straight down to the top of wall either, because we want to lessen the drainage. So we want to slope back a little bit from the wall where the gravel is, and then start coming up. That way the water can come down, hit the gravel, and then go into the gravel and work down into the grade.
So does the water drain off the municipal parking lot onto your property?
Right now, if you look at A6, you'll see water that comes down. You can see where it's puddled along the sidewalk. A5, there's some water that comes through there. Some of that is also from traffic, the dirt going across the sidewalk. We were looking to lessen the severity of that slope to reduce the water coming down. So,
and it sounds like to provide some area for filtration, drainage.
Yes, we're looking to eliminate anything going across walkways Because right now, the way that wall is, and that wall that's in there now, you can see is rotting. It's going to have to come out anyway. But the soil is up to that wall. The soil is coming over that wall. The water just comes down that slope and goes over that wall. It may not, river through there, but it's coming down at a decent rate, especially since you have those paths in there right now, because they're compacted. Right now, there's more compaction on the roots of those trees just from walking than anything else. And there's no problem with doing deep root fertilizations or anything like that with these trees either, to help out. I mean, we're going to have to decompact some of that area that's been run over anyway, because nothing's going to grow there right now.
Looks like if I just take a simple scale on the plan, it looks like that first maple on the left is about 4.5 feet from the front of where the wall would go. That sound about right?
First maple. You talking about the group in front?
I'd say the group of 8 maples, we're looking at it here in the foreground of A5 on the left, which would be the, I guess that would be the easterly maple. Looks like it's about 4.5 feet from the front of the wall.
Roughly, I guess. I was thinking a little bit more, but still, there's going to be about 3 feet, like I said. That you're going to have some cover on it, but it doesn't need to come up to the wall either. We could have that so that it's not really disturbing. You're not putting too much soil on there at all. It doesn't matter if the water sits in that area and goes down through the roots. It's still going to filter into the gravel. It's not a usable area there, so it doesn't have to be to the grade of everything else.
Okay.
Has our board engineer reviewed the logic of this plan? This is Tony. And by the way, I'm not a civil engineer, but that's okay.
Graham, if you could unmute David Battaglia.
Yeah, I've unmuted myself, actually. As far as reviewing the logic of the plan, no. We've reviewed the substance of what's presented.
Well, what does that mean? I mean, why would you put all this fill? There's no need for a wall right now, right? So now you're creating a wall when a wall really isn't needed. You're bringing in all this fill. It just doesn't seem.
I don't think
I would tend to agree with you. The reason why I say we did not review the logic is it's not really our place to review the logic. It's our place. It's our place to review what the legal requirements are.
Okay, fair enough. I guess that's kind of high.
I've been listening to the entire discussion, and I can tell you I actually agree with your logic.
Oh, good. I scored one there.
You did. But it's not something that we actually reviewed.
Thank you.
It looks like Ms. Davis has a question.
I just wanted to add, one of the things that we've talked about, just so you understand our logic, is that we talked about creating green space for our residents. So the fill would also help us to level off that space. We could use it as a garden, just a seating area. So we had more thoughts around what we were going to use that space for once we put in the initial fence. And then we also said when we came to the committee that we would look to fence around the parking lot side as well. So we have plans to maintain that property. We have plans for future use of it for our residents. And I think that should also be taken into consideration.
I hear you. I hope this will be a debate, but there is no, if you're planning on using it, you're building a wall between your property and the place you want to use.
But it's accessible from the back, though.
Exactly. It is accessible.
Can I ask a question?
Luckily, I'm home. I don't have to go home. I'm home already, but I'm gonna be quiet.
It is accessible from the building. We have 2 gate systems that would allow access to the property. Have you been to the property? Have you seen the space? Because
Absolutely.
I think that would help.
Absolutely.
This is John Wynn. I wanted to ask a question because I'm not exactly sure in my mind's eye what this is going to look like, but I've heard the issues brought up about people using this area to relieve themselves or to do drugs or whatever. But aren't you creating a nice little alcove that's sheltered by some nice trees and a wall off the parking lot where people can go back in there and just do whatever they want to out of sight?
Exactly.
Again, when it came to the committee, we did say that we are going to fence in the parking lot side. That's not something that we're looking past. We're looking at kind of managing the money. We're going to come back, whether it's later this year, perhaps early next year, with a plan to enclose the parking lot side as well.
Okay. From a logic standpoint, I don't know why you wouldn't do the other side first.
Yes.
With your rationale or your concern that people are using this as a cut through, that's the way to stop the cut through. That's the way to stop the misuse. And then when you're talking about beautifying or your property or using enhancing the green space, that comes after you stop the misuse. But
Right, but what we're also looking for is the gate that prevents people from walking down that walkway and around the back of the building as well. So we're really looking at what's impacting our residents the most at the current point.
Right.
But that's a pretty cheap fix, though, as Tony points out, without doing a retaining wall with backfill and stuff. You could do that with a simple chain link fence around the walkway.
Well, I'm not sure that our committee wanted a chain link fence there.
Well, you could use a gate.
It doesn't have to be a chain link fence. I mean, there's other much less complicated and much cheaper ways to do it than to put a 3-foot retaining wall with a 4-foot fence on top of it that runs to the street and runs along the sidewalk. That's
The Martin Schwartz, Chair Nguyen, Tony, myself are essentially saying the same thing. Your logic, even if you intended to do a 2-step process here, your logic is to stop the flow from the parking lot because people can still come down from that lot onto your property, even more unseen right now, and with the wall and the fence, and you're actually creating a detriment to start with, as opposed to taking it one step at a time, blocking off that area. If you want to block the pedestrian walkway, use the same fence style. I'm sure they make a gate of that or something similar. Link that up with the fence going around the parking lot, and then take a look, see what's happening. I think you're forgetting that the design of the Seymour Street area requires some steps going down into the plaza, that it's no longer a drive-through, that the street itself is going to have far less car traffic. So I think you're going to end up with less people going this way to start with. So, really, any way you look at it, the smart play and the play with least impact into the public view is to fence off the parking lot first, make any hookups with that you still feel you need it from a security standpoint, and then come back later if it's not working for you after the plaza and Wellmont are functional. And you can, say, hey, there's concerts all the time here, and we've got X happening, and, there's 15 police incidents, and et cetera, et cetera. But what you're proposing now is not the smart play, and it's not the least expensive play for your own homeowners. So I would
be going back to the planning committee.
Well, Janice.
It depends.
Yeah.
If you eliminate the variance, you go back to the development review committee. If there's a variance, you have to come back to the planning board. However, I think no matter, let me stand corrected, we've noticed for this. So
Right.
if you want to keep this active, I think it has to stay before the planning board and we continue it to another meeting.
All right, I think that's as far as we can go tonight. Does everybody agree with that part?
Hi, this is Steve Rooney. I agree with Carmel in that I think that the owners have identified what their problem is now, is people getting in from Seymour Street, not so much as coming in from the parking lot, and they'd like to block that off. So I don't have a problem with them putting in a retaining wall and a fence. I think that possibly later that they will need to put in a fence at the parking lot or some sort of blocking vegetation or something like that. But I would go with the way that they had designed it.
Welcome to put a motion up and we can have a vote.
The problem that I have with that, Mr. Schwartz, is if we don't get our variance now, we begin all over again.
Ergo, I think you've been given a pathway to save money, take it one step at a time, and potentially, you know, help the public in the process. But, you know, obviously there are some differences of opinion on the board. How many? I can't tell you.
There we go.
But
You hear me?
all is yours.
You get a rough idea of how many, or?
I personally see no hardship here. You're putting in a wall
There you go.
where a wall isn't even needed. You could block, even if you wanted to put a fence at the sidewalk level, the two grades come together right there. You don't need to build a wall. You could put a fence at the parking lot. You can put a fence down low. I just don't know why you need to put all this fill in and build a wall. I mean, the grades almost match. And also, when we get these applications in the future, if people are changing grades, we really should get some topography. That's, you know, people are talking about drainage and they're talking about changes in elevation. You know, the board needs a little bit more information to be able to view its impact. And I think that the detail that was provided didn't provide the board with enough detail to make an assessment of it initially. Certainly, this plan with no topo, you really can't. You have to go back and forth between the photographs. You have to go out there. You have to look at the plan to really understand what's going on.
Yeah, the retaining wall is the expense. The fill is not expensive.
Well, whatever. I mean, my point
you know,
is,
you're putting in fill. It's no big deal. It's a couple of truckloads.
Is required.
I think we've beaten this horse a bit.
Yeah.
Why don't we, if they want a informal sense, that's fine. If not, come back at the next meeting.
Mr. Griffin, it is your choice. You are the applicant's attorney. You've heard the board, and if you decide you want to revisit your plan, we will accommodate you. But the choice is yours.
I appreciate that, and I think we will put the board up on that.
Hello. And Emilio?
Ready.
Okay.
And you agree that all deadlines and all aspects of this will be extended as well, correct?
She hears us,
Of course, yes.
but I don't see her listed.
So I have two dates. I have May 4th or May 18th.
I think May 18th is more realistic.
That's what I
I
thought.
had to sign in again. I had to sign in as a
Carry the public
panelist
hearing
again when I
to the
came
May
back
18th
on.
meeting.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I signed in again.
Thank you, Jen.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question.
When we need
Okay.
a video on,
Yeah.
so we can
Arthur?
start the meeting by 8.
And this has to do with notice.
I don't know why Lisa.
The
Yes.
May 18th meeting is probably going to be another remote meeting.
That's
No,
fine.
I don't see.
They did when they did their notice for this
Latifa
meeting.
as
They
a-
had
on-
all
as a
of
list
the.
of
They had
participants?
the
I'm on
notice
the phone with
included the
Emilio right
information
now,
to the neighbors
trying to
how
get
to
him on.
continue, how to
And
access
we
that.
do have a
No.
call-in
I'm going to
user.
be setting up a new
Oh, all
meeting.
She might
And the
be calling
access
user number
information for that
8.
meeting will be different, but it will be posted on our agenda and on our website. But it's
Who's that?
obviously So I think what we should probably tell the
There you
public
are.
is
We hear you.
to join at the meeting on May 18th. They'll have to go to the website to get the link, the information to link in.
Hello, Latifah.
Yes, as long as you put into the agenda and your published notice how the public can access it, we will satisfy the Open Public
eating a
Meetings Act,
biscuit.
I believe.
I was so hungry.
So that information, I will,
Always
following this
eat
meeting
before
within the next
meeting.
week, I will
didn't. I know.
prepare the
I
agenda
have
for the
time.
May 18th meeting with all that information and post it
So
on
we're
our
in
web.
public now.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
But in any event, this application is being adjourned to the May 18th meeting. So the applicant itself won't need to republish.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board, do we need a break? You good to go?
I can probably hang out for a bit, sure.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Okay, so the next matter on our agenda is the application of Paul Dewars and Gabriel Montebello, 102 Cooper Avenue.
And I think the attorney for this application is David Brady.
Correct.
So Graham, if you can mute
Mr. Brady
everybody.
has been unmuted. Yes, he's on the line
Okay.
now.
Okay. Mr. Brady?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is David Brady. I'm with the firm of Brady and Coriel in Morristown. Tonight, I represent two people, PJ Dewars, who owns 102 Cooper Avenue, and that is block 3506, lot 17. That property is in the R175 zone. I also represent Gabriel Marabella, who owns 113 Summit Avenue. That's in block 3506, lot 38. That's in the R165 zone. Each property is improved with a single-family house and a detached garage. And you'll see, I see that Graham put up A1, which shows the current configurations of the property. The plan is to adjust the rear lot line. You'll see that the properties have an abutting rear lot line so that the Marabella property becomes larger. You can. This is a simple application, unlike the one that was just before us, where there are lots of engineering details and concerns over what was going on. Because of that, I'm just going to explain the plan. I think I'm going to have Mr. Marabella speak briefly about what he's trying to achieve. Graham, if you can go back to the to A1, which is the current survey. If you look at that, you'll see that the Marabella lot, which is on the left-hand side, is the smaller of the two lots. It contains about 0.172 acres. It's about 125 feet deep and 60 feet wide. And I think it's fair to say that it's tight. It's got a driveway, a patio, a house, a garage, and it covers just about the entirety of the lot. There's a minimal area for rear yard. If you look on the right-hand side, that's the Dewars property. It's probably about 3 times as large as the Marabella property. And even though it has, in addition to the house and the garage, a basketball court and an area for a play yard, the green yard itself is relatively large. If you go, Graham, to A2, please. You'll see that's the subdivision proposal. That rear lot line is going to be adjusted so that Dewars adds about 0.081 acres to the rear, or excuse me, Marabella adds about 0.081 acres to the lot. It's an area of approximately, on average, 32.5 feet deep and 105 feet wide. There is no new construction proposed here. We just simply have a change on a map Nothing is changing in the field. In terms of zoning criteria, I know that Janice did a report, and I think that is actually a 6. And if the board members look at that, you'll see it's basically a favorable report, and it notes, as we noted in the statement of application, that we're reducing the one of the variances that currently exists on the Marabella lot, namely that the frame garage is almost on the back back lot line, and there's no new variances being created here. And that's the application in a nutshell. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Graham, if you could open perhaps Mr. Montebello's mic, I'd like him to talk a little bit after Mr. Neese puts him under oath about how this came about and what he's trying to achieve.
Before we do that, Janice, will you just read into the record the exhibit list, please?
Sure. A1 is the survey of current conditions prepared by Morgan Engineering and Surveying dated September 4th, 2019. A2 is the subdivision plat prepared by Morgan Engineering and Surveying dated October 4th, 2019. A3 is the photo showing the area to be subdivided from lot 17. A4 is the proof of publication. A5 is the affidavit of service, and A6 is the planning report.
Nicely done. So, Mr. Brady, your witness is
Mr. Marabella.
Good evening, board. Thanks for taking the time and doing this virtually. Yeah, I mean, pretty simple.
Mr. Marabella.
Marabella. With an A, not an O. I think the application was incorrect.
Can I just ask you the following, sir? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Would you please state your full name and your address for the record?
Sure. Gabriel Marabella, 113 Summit Avenue, here in Montclair.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Marabella, I would like you to explain a little bit to the board the genesis of this proposal and what you're trying to achieve if the board grants it.
Sure. In my mind, very simple. I mean, when we bought the property 3 years ago, obviously had this small yard in the back and always dreamed of having a little bit of a bigger yard. I've 3 young boys, all boys, and, you know, really simply looking to landscape that back piece, lots of grass, you know, and clean up the trees and make it nice for the boys to play. It's pretty simple on my end. There's nothing else planned other than a area to play for the boys.
And Mr. Marabella, Ms. Talley's report indicates on the last page under planning considerations that if any trees are going to be removed, that you're going to have to comply with the tree removal permit. Do you have any plans for the backyard there? I already indicated to the board that there's no plans for any structures or anything like that. What's your plans in terms of the vegetation?
Sure. Simply, you know, landscaping, right? So there is plans to you know, landscape and make it look nice and usable for the family. If we remove any trees, we'll certainly abide by any you know, any planning board need there for sure. You know, we're just looking to make the backyard a nice area for the kids to play.
And I have no further questions, Mr. Marabella, and frankly, that ends our case.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone who's engaged in this meeting process, member of the public, that would like to ask some questions?
I don't believe so.
Are there any members of the board that have any questions? All right, and then it doesn't seem like there's any questions one way or the other here. Members, I'm sorry, Mr. Brady, did you want to say anything in summation?
I don't think so. It kind of speaks for itself. The board had a lengthy and intense meeting or hearing on the last one. I think this is a simple application. You're moving a lot line. It's something on paper, nothing really in the field that would affect anybody, and that's why we have no members of the public here that are really interested. It's kind of nondescript, and we'd ask that you approve it.
All right. I tend to agree with Mr. Brady, but Carmel, did you want to say something?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
I was going to do that, but please be my guest.
I just make a motion that this application as presented be passed.
I'll second.
Can I add just that with the condition that the applicant will follow the township tree ordinance?
There you go.
No objection at all.
Thank you.
All right, I'll do the roll call. Vice Chair Brodock,
Yay.
Mr. Schwartz,
Yes. Do we have to clarify the no structure business, or will that just be in the resolution?
Well, it's up to Mr. Neese, but it would seem to me that's part of the testimony. It would be the testimony that is reflected in the findings of fact.
okay.
Without Mr. Neese' further comment, yes.
It'll
Mr.
be in the
Cook?
resolution.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
okay. Ms. Willis,
Ms. Willis?
I said yes.
Thank you.
okay. Mr. Rooney,
Yes.
Mr. Ian Wally, okay. Mr. Gilmer,
Yes.
okay. And I think we have an approval.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I understand board members, I don't have any committee reports to present. But we do have payment of bills. Now, the bills, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when is 37 Orange Road supposed to be looked at again?
I don't know. They have decided not to proceed on May 4th. So right now I have no applications for May 4th, and I think we'll be canceling that meeting. I did speak with Brian earlier in the week, Mr. Stolar, and he said he's shooting for the first June meeting. So they're revising their plans. They're reworking their plans, trying to address some of the comments that came up at the last meeting. And he anticipates, depending on where we are, because I don't think that they want to proceed with a remote meeting, perhaps in June.
Thank you.
Okay. So payment of bills, I don't believe that the bills were actually put in your packet, but they were sent in the email that I sent out to the board members. I don't know if you want to act on the bills at this meeting. If not, we'd have to wait a month.
I mean,
Janice?
I'm prepared to act on the bills if everyone else is okay.
If my bills were part of that packet, yes, I'd appreciate that.
They weren't. Sorry. I believe it was a Davison Eastman and a Barton Ross invoice, one each, and I would move to approve those two bills.
Okay.
Second.
Second? All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Well, I think that I'll be canceling the May 4th meeting because nobody wanted to proceed at that meeting. So our next meeting will be May 18th.
All right.
All right.
Okay?
Well, thank you, everyone.
Good job.
Thank you.
Didn't
Thank
work out too
you.
bad.
Thank
All right,
you.
everybody stay safe.
Good
Stay
night.
safe, everybody. Stay
And
healthy.
healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
How do we get rid of